Om Amriteshwari Nama. I would request everybody to please filter back to the hall. We are starting immediately. We have our eminent panelists on stage already, so I would request everybody to please settle down. Om Amriteshwarye Namaha. Om Amriteshwarye Namaha. Om Amriteshwarye Namaha. A warm welcome to everybody for today's wonderful session. We have a panel discussion on cultivating compassion, self-awareness, and sensitizing the community for inclusion. We have a very eminent group of panelists gathered here with us today, so I hope we can take the best out of this panel. In fact, we have heard throughout this two-day event that without creating a culture of the heart, we cannot truly progress in an inclusive manner. So we really look forward to hearing the thoughts from our eminent panelists today. Let me start with Ritesh Kumar Singh ji. Ritesh ji is an IAS officer, currently the Principal Secretary, Department of School Education and Literacy, Karnataka. Ritesh ji has also served as a senior advisor to the Executive Director of the World Bank in Washington, D.C. and has held several positions including the Joint Secretary, Director, Managing Director in sectors like banking, finance, climate change, environment and forests, power and energy, both at the state and central government level. Welcome, Ritesh ji. We also have with us Dr. Alexander Jacob. Sir is an IPS, a retired Indian police officer. He rose to the rank of the Director General of Police in the Kerala State Police Force, heading the Prisons Department, and later assumed charge as the Managing Director of the Kerala Police Housing Construction Corporation. At present, he is the Nodal Officer of the National University of Police Sciences and Security Studies. He was awarded the President's Police Medal for meritorious service by the President of India on Republic Day 2004. A warm welcome, sir. We also have with us Dr. Manisha Sudhir. Dr. Manisha is the Provost of Amrita University, heading up strategic initiatives, international research and innovation. She's also the Dean of the School of Sustainable Development and also the UNESCO Chair on Experiential Learning for Sustainable Innovation and Development. She has been rated among the top 2% of the world's scientists. She holds a PhD in Computer Science and Engineering. Welcome, Dr. Manisha. And we have with us Brahmacharni Amrita Chaitanya. She's a monastic disciple of Amma. She met Amma when she was a very little girl, and that meeting ignited the spark of love and her desire for leading a spiritual life. She moved to Amma's ashram soon thereafter and has been living there since then. She is extremely fluent in Malayalam and has been studying Sanskrit and the Vedic scriptures for many, many years. Brahmacharni Amrita Chaitanya ji gives regular talks in Sandhya Deepam, a spiritual program telecast on Amrita TV. She's a great lover of India, the rich Indian culture, and most importantly, India's ancient science of spirituality. Welcome, Amrita Chaitanya ji. And of course, the panel is being moderated by none other than Swamiji. Swami Amrita Sarupananda Puriji, of course, as you heard, is a remarkable spiritual luminary known for his deep wisdom, unwavering devotion and compassionate leadership. As the senior most disciple of Amma, the vice chairman of the Mata Amrita Nandmayi Math, and the president of Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham, he has dedicated his life to the upliftment of humanity and the pursuit of enlightenment. Swamiji holds a master's degree in philosophy and of course is a renowned author and translator. Many pranams, Swamiji. I will hand over the floor to Swamiji to take us and lead us forward.
Om Premamridanandamayi Nityam Namo Namaha. Om Premamridanandamayyai Nityam Namo Namaha. Om Premamridanandamayyai Nityam Namo Namaha. I humbly bow down at Amma's sacred lotus feet. My Namaskaram's love and greetings to Sri Ritesh Singh, Sri Alexander Jacob, Dr. Manisha Sudhir, and Brahmacharani Amrita Chaitanya, and my Namaskaram's love and greetings to all the participants, all the dignitaries of the stage. So let me begin with Amma's words. So the plenary session discusses on cultivating compassion, self-awareness, and sensitizing the community for inclusion. Amma says knowledge is like the sun. Asatoma sat gamaya. Knowledge, tamasoma jyotir gamaya. Mrityorma amritam gamaya. So knowledge is God, knowledge is beauty, knowledge is virtue, knowledge is... So everything is light. Without light, there is no existence, there is no world. So knowledge is light, knowledge is like the sun. That's what Amma says. And it lights up both inside and outside. And education is knowledge. It's a process of gathering knowledge, not just external, not just information, but inner opening up. Since education is light, or since education brings light, Amma says, light belongs to everyone. Hence, education is everyone's right. The world belongs to everyone, unquote. The world belongs to everyone, the sun belongs to everyone, the earth belongs to everyone, water, air, fire, either belongs to everyone. So the sun and the moon belong to everyone. In short, exclusion is a man-made rule. Whereas inclusion is the law of the universe, the law of God. And we have been going against, again and again and again, against the law of the universe. While the self-styled scientists and the logical minds demand proof for the existence of a power beyond human intellect, or our experience gives us clear indication of a power that governs the universe and its mysterious ways. So there are, of course, man-made rules such as the constitutional law, the traffic rule, law and order. And there are so many rules which are important. The objective world of happenings need those rules. However, these rules are not applicable to the subjective world, where there is a subtle and incomprehensible law. Our scientific discoveries and technological advancements are totally ineffective to make any changes there. As Amma puts it, as far as our personal lives are concerned, we have a certain degree of freedom to decide our lives, to write our own script, and the sequence that, the way that it should function. However, this is not the law of the internal world, or this is not how the universe works. The universe doesn't give many choices. It's not like, Dhamma says, it's not like the TV channel. You have the remote control, you can flip. You can choose any channel you want. That's not the law of the universe, and the universe has only one single program for everyone. So, ego is the root cause, the violation of all the rules set by universe. We are totally ignoring it. We go against it. We don't want to align with that rule, with that law. Hence, This violation, this exploitation, this encroachment is the root cause of all the problems, and it is bound to cause disasters. And the solution for many of our problems is simple. While adhering to man-made rules, stop violating the laws of nature. Instead, obey the law of the universe. Be in tune with it. So my first question is to Sri Rithar Singh, IAS. With digitalization and AI, artificial intelligence to take over the whole world, privacy, security, compassion, and even basic humaneness will be in great danger. Do you think our governments will be equipped to safeguard the precious life and security of people, at least to some degree? How do we find a balance also with the unimaginable developments in technology? Do you think inclusion is possible at all? Do you think as technology becomes more complex, it would bring more inequality? Please.
Om Amriteshwarye Namaha. Pujya Swamiji, dignitaries on the dais, dignitaries off the dais, friends. I'll make some general comments and then try to address the question that Swamiji has addressed. Just to give you an idea of how complex the government school system in our country is, we have 1.1 million schools, 143 million students, and almost 5 million teachers in the government schools set up in the country. In Karnataka, we have about 2 lakh teachers, 50,000 schools. In the last 3 decades in our country, there has been an exponential rise in the number of schools, in the government schools that is, and enrollment due to various government initiatives. However, caste, class, gender, and religious inequalities persist in our country and strongly correlate with student attendance, learning, retention, and dropouts. Let me also be candid about some of the issues that are plaguing our schools. There's a lot of red tape, not just in the education department, elsewhere in the government as well. We have an insensitive bureaucracy. There's the problem of corruption. As I already mentioned, the numbers have grown exponentially, whereas there has not been adequate investment in the public school system. Thirdly, there is a huge gap that we have left out, and there's a huge proliferation of private schools that are coming up. Why am I talking so much about the government schooling system? A large section of our society still accesses these schools. Many of the children who access public schools come from very deprived backgrounds. The challenges are intergenerational and pervasive. Parents and families often struggle and take up multiple jobs to make ends meet and cannot provide consistent care and protection for their children. As a result, out-of-school factors weigh heavily in determining student achievement. We need safe, clean, and warm schools that will help children grow up as focused, competent, and compassionate human beings. These children need good mentors, possibly their teachers, who will provide them with love and care and support them in their learning journey. The school should be a center which supplies children from deprived backgrounds with new experiences. Our goal should be to give them tools to survive and thrive in situations of anxiety and teach them other healthy habits like eating healthy, exercising, and having fun that will help them create a joyful life full of possibilities. The school and the teachers can be a robust support system to help them grow into healthy, loving, and accepting adults. This may mean many things: having a very strong art, music, and physical education program, having a focus program on meditation, teaching moral values in schools, teachers and administrators who are trained in socioeconomic learning, and being aware of the principles of effective inclusive education. So I thought I'll make these broad general comments and then try to address the question Puja Swamiji has raised. Indeed, AI is going to be a huge challenge, and more so for the government sector. In fact, Swamiji, our teachers are not even equipped with basic tools to handle the challenges that are being posed by AI. So I think the first step that the government needs to take is to train the teachers themselves on what are the potential users and abusers of AI. The other thing I very strongly feel is that there needs to be a lot of well thought out regulation of the latest developments that are happening in the field of artificial intelligence. I'm not very sure if the government has really started work on that. We have seen some regulation has already emerged from the European Union. There is some talk of regulation going on in the United States as well. But we still, India, I think, we still have not yet started some very serious work on this. And how this will impact the school education system, the basic humaneness, as you have mentioned, I think these are extremely important questions which our education system is still to come to terms with. So I hope and I pray that we are also able to rise to the challenge and make sure that the basic humaneness, the compassion, that is the cornerstone of our culture remains as we go ahead and embrace the new technological improvements that are happening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ritesh ji. And, it sounded like, when Mr. Ritesh Singh spoke, sounded like the teachers and parents are not really helping our children and students to develop a compassionate attitude, not to mention about the basic human values. So my question to Sri Alexander Jacob is, education for all, otherwise known as inclusion, is possible only by adding the compassion quotient to it. Easier said than done with all the polarization happening in society. And sorry to mention this, the crocodile tears shed by the so-called secularist people. How do we achieve inclusion? Can we hope that our education system will produce at least a small percentage of compassionate people? I mean, just forget about compassionate people, people who are capable of dealing situations and situations in a fair manner, particularly when the entire focus is on money and we live in a result-oriented society. So, result is more important than action. It has to be reversed. Action should become more important than the result. So what are your suggestions, Dr. Alexander Jacob?
Good morning to the distinguished audience before me and the large number of people who are going to listening it in the YouTube and the other live telecast forms. Two vital questions are asked. One is about compassion. God created man with an eyes which cannot look around more than 500 meters ahead. And when it opens, it naturally looks down. If you want to look up, you have to raise your head like this. God created man to have compassion to the downtrodden, not to look up at the skies and fly to that high levels. But in the last 2,000 years, when capitalism came, they started concentrating this wealth to the hands of a few. 1% of the people own around 75% of the wealth in Europe and America. In India, 1% of the people own around 70% of the wealth of India. The large number of masses have no money, nothing to subsist. Now, in this kind of a situation, our religions predominantly created a system by which people were told to look down, to help the downtrodden. If you go to Jesus Christ, he says, if you give something to an ordinary man, it will be written in the account of God. So God, Jesus Christ, just turned the tide. In Tamil literature, we have Andal. God said, I will come and meet you. But next day by 11 o'clock, really, God came as a beggar. She didn't understand. But in the evening, God appeared and she complained. She said, I came as a beggar and you didn't recognize me. So there are a lot of theories throughout the world in many stories that God appears in the form of a poor man or a beggar. Now in the real situation, all the religions, especially Hindu religion, teach us that if you do punyam, good deeds, compassion, activities of compassion, it will take you to moksham or heaven, according to whichever religion it is. But if you do pabam, you will go to hell. This is a mythological description of life after life. But what is punyam, what is pabam? That is defined by Bhagavatam in a single sentence. That is translated by a Malayalam poet into Malayalam. Paropakarame punyam, pabame parapedanam. If you have compassion to another human being, that is a punyam, if you do something to them. But if you hurt somebody else, it is pabam, it is a sin. Your life after life will be horrible. That's what they say. Now, when people are propelled towards punyam, that is a propulsion towards the downtrodden. We are supposed to have a compassion. In Islam, Holy Prophet told us that you should do zakat. 2.5% of your total income in a year shall compulsorily go to the poor for compassion activity. Most of the religions concentrate on this aspect. But the post-capitalist age, we have to turn back the system by which public money shall be routed towards the poor to bring everybody out of poverty so that beggars and other kinds of people shall not exist. So in our education, we should teach our people to have compassion so that the rich and the bountiful should give a portion of that to the poor people. Here is where your self-awareness comes. Who are you? Immanuel Kant wrote a famous book, and he was thinking about three problems. Who am I? Where am I coming from? And where am I going to? He thought about this and walked through the streets of Königsberg. He went and hit a policeman, a traffic policeman, because Immanuel Kant forgot where he is walking. And the policeman suddenly lifted him up. You know, a policeman correctly holds one place to lift the person up. And he asked him, who are you? Where are you coming from? Where are you going to? Immanuel Kant said, exactly these three questions I am thinking about while I hit you. That was Immanuel Kant's famous answer. He wrote a 600-page book and he concluded, I don't know the answer of these three questions. Then why did he write that book and trouble us for making it to read it for 2 days? Now, when you understand who are you, where are you coming from, and ultimately where are you going to, you become self-aware of who are you. In Kadopanishad, Najigadas was told by the Rishi, who are you? And in 6 questions, Najigadas understood who was he. Now, to make people realize who they are is the vital part of education. If you don't have that education, no PhD, no DLT will help you to reach real education. But the problem with modern society is of inclusion. Now, according to British colonial policy, I'm taking only an example, the Britishers wanted to divide India. They divided India to 427 native states. Then they subdivided in the 1881 census, people according to caste. The Brahmins were divided into 162 subcastes. Nayars, who occupy 12% of Kerala's population, were subdivided into 58 subcastes. The Kuravas, who are only 3 lakh population, were subdivided into 22 subcastes. Hindus had only 4 castes, but the Britishers made it into 7,642 caste and subcaste. Each one was made to have ill feeling against the others. In Africa, they went and subdivided the continent into 54 different parts. They created a foolishness called races. There is no race, but they divided that race, this race. Then they started dividing people according to their color. And ultimately what happened, we have 1,642 languages, 7,642 caste, subcaste, religions, and all those things. The moment you feel that other fellow is not belonging to me, you are destroying the nation, you are destroying the society. That is what the great founding fathers in the Constituent Assembly decided, to stop all division of caste or religion or language or region or sex. They completely destroyed in Article 14 and 15 of our Constitution. If you want to have self-inclusion, you should reach this stage where you shall not feel that the other human being is different from me. Other human being is not belong to another caste, another religion, like that. If you can find that all the 800 crores of the world population is one and I belong to them, then that is inclusion. That is education we want. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Alexander Jacob. An astrologer was reading the horoscope of a man. And the astrologer, thoroughly went through the horoscope and finally said, you know what, you are going to go through a very bad time until the age of 60. And then the man asked, and thereafter? And thereafter it will become your nature. So in a similar manner, Dr. Alexander Jacob did not sound positive at all. He was strongly pointing out the gap between the haves and have-nots. And it gave me the impression at least that the gap will keep widening and it will never going to be bridged. And if so, it's going to be a horrible situation. I mean, the future world is going to be almost like hell. And if one of us, some of us, at least some of us, still exist in this world, we will become totally misfits. I'm sure about that. So perhaps it will take, in case something changes, a transformation takes place, it may take hundreds of years. So it's a very bad situation. So my next question is to Brahmacharini Amrita Chaitanya. The scriptures, the Indian scriptures say, Satyam vada dharmam chara swadhyayan ma pramada. Means speak the truth, lead a dharmic life, and set an example to others. And this used to be the guiding principle of our forefathers or our ancients. However, in today's world, things have completely changed. Now the slogan is, the more cunning you are, the more successful you are. In such a society where everyone watches out for themselves only and don't lift others up, how can we introduce compassion, inclusion, and self-awareness? Amrita, you have a microphone there.
Om Amriteshwari Namaha. Thank you, Swamiji. It is a big question. I'll attempt to give my insights into this. I'd like to start with a short story. This is the story of a friend of mine. Her name is Alex, and she's a primary school teacher. Last time I met her, she told me this little anecdote. So she had her class of primary school kids, and there was a new student, a new child, joining the class. And then this new child, this is happening in Europe, but the new child happened to be from Indian origin. Her name was Surabhi. And now Surabhi is hearing impaired. So what Alex did is she spoke to her class. She introduced the new child, said, okay, this is Surabhi, your new classmate. She told them, she said, see, Surabhi has 2 ears, like you and like I also have. But there's a difference, because Surabhi's ears don't function as well as mine or yours. Therefore, that's why she's wearing hearing aids. And also that's why when you talk to Surabhi, you need to make sure she can see your face and she can watch your mouth. because she'll understand you not only through hearing your words, but also through reading your lips. So this child was integrated very well into this classroom. Alex, as the teacher, always made sure that when she was giving class, she'd be facing the right direction to make sure that Surabhi could watch her face and watch her lips as she spoke. Now one day, this class went to another teacher's classroom just to take for a different subject. It was a new teacher. So these kids went to the other class, and when they came back, Alex noticed all the kids in the classroom were quite distressed. They seemed upset. Said, Ma'am, the new teacher. And Alex said, well, what's the problem? What happened with the new teacher? So one of the kids spoke up for the other kids in the class. She said, Ma'am, when the new teacher, when she's talking to the class, she's writing on the whiteboard at the same time. So we can't see her face. How is Surabhi going to be able to follow the class? Just see the effect. See the effect of how receptive those kids were to just that simple and small input from Alex about being aware and sensitive to the needs of a different child. When I heard this, I just thought that just shows how far a small effort can go. There were two aspects. One is she told them, she included them in the responsibility of Surabhi's inclusion in the class. And also, so she told them that, and also she demonstrated for them the right example. She herself, as she was teaching, was very aware of Surabhi's special needs. So just think, on one hand, Surabhi was helped through this strategy. She was able to be included and able to grow and learn and continue as a student, as a child at school like everyone else. But there's something else which I feel is even more precious from this incident. Every single one of those children in that class, without even realizing it, they learned a lesson that I feel they'll keep for the rest of their lives. That understanding that they need to be proactive, they are part, like this social inclusion and the well-being of society as a whole is each and every one of their responsibility. So I think this is just as we've seen, we can take a very negative look on the world, on all the exclusion, the difficulties, the hardships, the challenges we face. Things seem to be sometimes getting worse rather than better. But when you just think of how much effect some little efforts like this of trying to give children especially, but I think we can also, it'll be just as effective or pretty effective with adults and youth as well. Children, of course, are extremely receptive, so it's such a shame to miss that opportunity of giving them such simple inputs, of providing them conditions in which they can develop that sense of connection with others, an altruistic outlook, and empathy. I'm in the ashram, there's another, I've been working with certain people just to try and develop some ideas for value education, values, Sanatana Dharma values, to be taught in our universities. And another area that we really focus on was that of, which is part of the theme of this discussion, of mindfulness, self-awareness, which is basically more modern terms for what also are ancient rishis of India, the wisdom of this country, calls dhyana, meditation. But I'm bringing it up here because something we don't always realize is that there's a strong connection between mindfulness or self-awareness and compassion. And Dr. Alexander Jacob touched on that in what he was saying also. Basically, the research has been done, recent research shows that the area of the brain that is developed more, stimulated when you do practices of mindfulness, self-awareness, or meditation is the same area of the brain that's connected to empathy and compassion. So I feel, try to answer Swamiji's question, if we can somehow bring in, really give that focus and emphasis on these two elements. One is trying to teach people to stand in someone else's shoes, to be sensitive to their needs. And that through also teachers, maybe also training teachers on how they can give that input in a successful way to their children in class. And also this development really focus on training and developing, practicing self-awareness and mindfulness. Thank you. Om Amrita Shivaya.
Thank you, Amrita Chaitanya. That was a very good example for compassionate inclusion. So it should not be just inclusion, it should be compassionate inclusion. So if inclusion lacks the aspect of compassion, then it is incomplete and it will have problems. So one single teacher could inspire an entire class. Wonderful. Okay, so, and also I was reminded of Amma, how she is all-inclusive. All-inclusive. Just observe Amma's darshan. And so many people from different nations, different nationalities, who speaks different language, different culture, different religious paths, come to see Amma. And a leper comes, she embraces that person lovingly, with the same love, with the same affection. And then an African comes and she embraces that person with the same love. Someone from the US, someone from Japan, or a child comes, an old lady comes. It's all inclusive. And this has been happening for the last 45 years, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And the only one person I have ever seen in my life who has never, ever taken a single holiday, a single day off, is Amma. So I perfectly understand that example. And my next question is to Dr. Manisha Sudhir. Gandhiji's definition of education is drawing out the best in a child, a man, body, mind, and spirit. Today's education gives more importance to the intellectual development, thereby totally ignoring the heart and the emotional mind. How do we find a balance?
Amriteshwari Namaha. Thank you, Swamiji. I'll try my level best to bring out a few points which I have experienced over the years. Swamiji's question was how to find the balance. The first and foremost, I feel like it's not the balance, it's the foundation itself, the heart and the emotional mind. And strengthening that is the foundation that we need to build in. Our ancient days, if you look, that has happened in our home itself. And especially because we have larger families with a larger set of members who are in the family, each one of them has acted as a teacher. And from each one of them, we were learning the different perspectives, the different positive impact, different moral values. Today, since world has changed to more into an atomic structure, I think. More and more people are becoming with a small house, with a father and mother, have no time to spend for the children itself. So it becomes more responsible for the educational institution to take the responsibility of even home. So every educational system, whether it is school or university, it's a challenge. How are you going to bring in the part of, cultivating the heart, cultivating the compassion in students? Like any other institution, Amrita University also has this challenge when you have more than 25,000 students studying in all the institutions. In the school system, I think there are 90 schools, Amrita Vidyalayams all around the country. All of these students covering more than 1 lakh students. Okay, how are you going to bring in the change in these perspectives? And to our fortunate, Amma is the guiding light for the whole, universe, and we get the opportunity to get the guidance from Amma. And very clear instruction which came from Amma is, what we lack in the current generation is compassion. Amma feels youth lacks that majorly. At home, we never try to teach them, we never take the time to tell them how we have to help somebody, what is the best thing to do in any situation. So most of the time they forget the dharma itself, what they have to follow. So Amma had proposed a new, completely different education pedagogy where Amma want to bring in a practical perspective, how can you quickly build the compassion in the students. So Amma has brought in a program called Live in Labs, where Amma have sent the students into rural communities to be in those communities. Don't go with any judgment, don't go with any solution, nothing. You be in that situation, experience that community. What are their culture, their values, their systems, etc. And then work with them and collaboratively, participatively come up with solutions which will enhance the society. Every year, nearly 1,500 students goes to these communities. And what I have heard from these students when they come back, from each community when they come back, they will have this large list of systems which they want to help the community. So these were the students who never thought of helping a student in their class, a peer in their class, to help them. These are the students who go to the community, come back with 15 set of items saying that we want to do this for the community. And they are so eager, they're pushing the teachers to their limits to make that happen. So it was a very practical way Amma is trying to bring in that change which we couldn't do in the household, which the education institution is taking forward to bring in that compassion in the students. And at the same time, what is happening here is, it's not only the students from the university go, because the change maker cannot be only students. And the teachers are the long-term people. So Amma sends the teachers along with them. So they go as a co-learner along with the students. So it's the whole ecosystem gets changed of what is needed for the society. So it is naturally compassion is brought in. And as Amma has talked in her Stanford speech, where Amma said, compassion is the most important thing in our life. And that is the first step. And if we courageously take that, everything will become positive, whatever we take forward. I think that is what practically through Live in Labs program we were trying to bring in that. And this is today taken up by UNESCO chair to bring it as a global curriculum and take forward that. So the process is bringing in the heart-to-heart communication and how you give them that emotional strength to handle the situations arises. And so this approach has helped us to build a solution which can be used by the educational universities.
Thank you, Dr. Manisha Sudhir. I disagree with one point. All the other points were very good, but just one point. That's a small house. She mentioned people live in small houses. That is incorrect. People live in big houses and they try to build houses bigger than their income. So big house, big kitchen, big bathroom, big plasma TV, the biggest screen, the largest screen, big kitchen, and the smallest hearts. That's the situation. So it is said that people find it extremely difficult to even two people cannot live under the same roof. Each one is on each one other's neck. They're always trying to catch hold of the neck of the other person. So people, they fall in love with gadgets or pets or their Nintendos. So that's the situation. So the second round of question is to Sri Hridesh Singh IAS. Education is a process of bringing the students' innate or inherent knowledge and potential to the surface. The origin of the word education is from the Latin root educare, meaning to lead out, to educe, to bring forth. In other words, it is not the pouring of knowledge, assuming that children are like empty vessels. Today's education gives primary importance to lecturing to students and having them memorize information. How to improve that? Is it experimental learning? Is it discovery? What are the components of a brand new educational system that you would suggest?
Thank you, Swamiji. I would like to mention a couple of things that the government is already doing to introducing experiential learning in schools. One of our very large interventions and a very successful intervention that has happened over the last few years is setting up of the Atal Tinkering Labs, where actually children, high school children are actually getting to use 3D printers. They're getting to do actual hands-on development of apps. Similarly, Swamiji, there's been a lot of work in the new education policy, which actually tries to de-emphasize rote learning and make it more learning by doing kind of a concept. Again, the issue, Swamiji, is that because we have the entire network of government schools is so vast and so diverse, so getting from the new education policy to the actual curriculum framework to the actual textbooks is also a very long drawn-out exercise. So, but I'm happy to share with this august audience that that process is already underway in Karnataka, Swamiji. We have developed the curriculum framework for Karnataka for the early childhood education. The government has also come up with the curriculum framework at the national level for the secondary schools as well, and that is at a draft stage. Hopefully that will also get finalized. But it's work in progress, Swamiji, and we are trying to move away from a rote learning to a more experiential learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Hriday Singh. And my next question, perhaps the last question, to Dr. Alexander Jacob. I sincerely hope that he would be more optimistic and positive this time. Sir, if you were responsible for creating a population of loving, compassionate, and selfless human beings with a love for nature, a zest to know more about our culture, our ancient scriptures, and inquisitiveness to translate this knowledge into action, what would you do? Suppose you were the Chief Minister of Kerala.
For Samaji's question, I will give 2 or 3 of my personal experiences. I was Director General of Prison Department. We had around 7,300 prisoners at that time, projected to reach around 11,000 or 12,000 by 2020 at a normal rate of growth. First thing we found out was that prisoners lack education. Half of them were not really literate. So I thought that their criminality may be because of the lack of education. So what I did, I started schools inside the jails, and anybody can write for ESLC examination. I taught them, and 235 people passed their ESLC examination. I started a university branch, Indira Gandhi National Open University, inside the jail. One fellow took PhD, 3 fellows took MBA, 1 fellow took LLB, and around 100 people took different degrees. And all the persons who became qualified and got degrees, etc., stopped their crime. They withdrew back as normal citizens. Second one I did was, many of these people had a lack of real faith. So as Sambhaji asked, what I did was, I brought the sannyasis inside the jail and asked them to teach about Hinduism.
Not inside the jail, right?
Come inside as guest. So I gave them facility. That pun on that word is different. So they started teaching what is Hinduism, what is Sanatana Dharma, etc., etc. I asked the Christian priest to come. they started confessions. And the moment they started confessing, the Christians felt that God has forgiven their crime. And then I brought the Muslim people, and they started teaching about Islam. So Muslims will go there. And then the Muslims said that during this Eid period, they want to give biryani to the prisoners who are attending the class. I said, nothing doing. You cannot give biryani to 200 people. If you want to give, you have to give biryani to all the 2,500. Palay Mos said, no problem, we will supply to everybody. So 2,500 biryani started coming to the prison. It became a great festival. And then what I did, I made circular buildings. 1/3 is temple, 1/3 is mosque, 1/3 is Christian church. And those criminals who attacked the other religions' mosque or temples and committed theft in the other buildings were given charge of these temples, mosque, and church. What they started was, they started cooperating, and a Hindu fellow who attacked a mosque started listening to the Muslim fellow coming and teaching about Holy Quran. And the people who committed theft in temples started listening to the lecture of the Hindu sannyasi giving about Sana Dharma. So what happened was this accused people who attacked the religious institutions completely started coming down, and they became normal fellows. They were never involved in any crime after that. So the moment you teach people what is real religion, not communal religion, real religion, they understand it. And we requested Mother Amrita Ashramam to send their sannyasis to teach them about Amma and her teachings, etc. And Mother Amrita Madam willingly came, and the last 8 years you can see in the present, wonderful change. Mother Amrita and these disciples coming and teaching inside the prison. Then occasionally I went and give a lecture in the temple. Occasionally I give a lecture in the mosque about Islam, and sometimes I go to the church teaching about Bible. Same person teaching all the three religions. Now the wonderful change it happened to the prisoners. They became normal human beings. They stopped doing crime. And the third situation was the people living inside the prison, hard criminals and all, they started fighting and all those problems. So when I went to the assembly to answer a question in the assembly, there was big discussion going on inflation, price rise and all. So I told the chief minister, what is the meaning in giving lecture in the assembly? You have to produce cheap food and give it to the people. Chief minister asked, how is it possible? I said, I will convert prison into a food generating center. So chapati was 8 rupees at that time in Trivandrum. So I started supplying chapati at 2 rupees to the market. Vegetable curry was 30 rupees. I started producing it at 10 rupees, vegetable curry. And then drinking water was 30 rupees per mineral water bottle. I started producing it for 10 rupees. And then the prisoners were getting only 32 rupees wages per day. So I increased it to 200 rupees per day. So every prisoner can send about 6,000 rupees per month to home. Now the situation was, one criminal was producing a bunch of criminals. The moment the fellow is convicted for life, wife have no income, most of them went for prostitution, what else she can do? And children started pickpocketing, and they started becoming petty criminals coming into the brothel school and then to the juvenile homes. So what I did, from the money he receives for working with chapati production, etc., 6,000 rupees per month was sent to the wife. So wife had some money to survive. And every criminal, children below 10th standard will get 500 rupees per month for their studies. And if any children of the criminal is more than 10th standard, that particular child was giving 1,000 rupees per month for that person's education. What happened? The families stopped becoming criminals. Wife started living normally. Children started getting their education. And after this criminal got out of the prison, he stopped all criminal activities. He became a normal man. So real thing was, instead of 11,000 prisoners in Kerala jails now, we have only 6,000 now, less than 5,000 down. And I went to the women prison. Total women prisoners were 560. To look after them, 235 women prison staff were there. So I taught all these women stitching, tailoring. And when they were released, we purchased a stitching machine, tailoring machine. And when she was dropped back at home, this machine also was, sewing machine was also given home. They were told embroidery, food packeting, and food making and all those things. Now the net effect is, instead of 562 women prisoners, Kerala's prison have only 132 now. Women guards are 230, but the number of women prisoners is less than 230. So instead of making lectures, each one of us in our own personal life can do little things like this. When it adds up together, we can think of something what Swamiji predicted we can achieve in the next 20 years or so, a wonderful result in Indian society. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing the wonderful real-life experiences. And now the question is, how do we implement the same model in our schools? And also, Sue, now you know who the person behind those good quality chapatis available for 2 rupees, rupees 2. And my question is, has the prices increased? No, not yet. So,
prices have not increased, but I got a surname, Chapati DGP. This is the title now.
So that means you are Annapurna. I mean a smaller version. The transformation that his work has created in the criminals who were behind bars, and by the time they came out of the jail, they were good-hearted people. But people who were outside became criminals, so they went back to jails. So we could maintain the proportion. That's a good thing. So the next question again to Amrita Chaitanya. One moment. Amrita Chaitanya, you were born and brought up in the West. However, you had a good degree of exposure to the Indian systems of education and culture. Do you think that our world would undergo a positive transformation in its outlook towards building a healthier generation endowed with greater understanding and maturity if there was more of an Indian influence in education worldwide? I mean, we have to transform first. I mean, that's most important.
Om Amrita Had. Thank you, Swamiji. I think definitely from the point is that to have the understanding of taking the right wisdom from the ancient wisdom, the extremely rich culture we have here in India, and finding the essence of it. Of course, you can't just transpose everything that is said in the scriptures and just apply it to today. But it's a question of having that clarity to be able to take the essence and then combine that ancient wisdom along with modern technology and some of the modern concepts of all the inclusion, self-awareness, education, etc. Just to give some ideas of what I would see as the ancient wisdom of India bringing a very beneficial contribution towards creating a society where individuals can develop into good human beings will be, again, a little bit what I touched upon when I first spoke of Indian scriptures say, well, actually, Swamiji mentioned Satyam vada dharmam chara swadhyayan ma pramadaha. So it means speak the truth, do good actions, follow dharma, and don't be lazy in your own self-reflection, your self-study. So I'd just like to take up on that last bit of self-study. It means the first thing Amma always tells us, and basically is pretty well the essence of the rich ocean of scriptures that we have in India, is know yourself. And though that might, when you first hear that, it might seem a little selfish or individualistic or something, you're just looking at yourself. But actually, if you really come to know yourself, you become aware of how connected, how interconnected we are, how much part of a whole we are. So that way of looking within brings that connectivity. Like in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, Sutre Manigana iva we come to realize, and not only realize on an intellectual level, but fully experience the fact that we are all beads on the same thread. Like Amma says, we are all beads on the one same thread of love. So that's on one aspect. Also, though, this development of, as I mentioned before, dhyanam, like self-introspection, self-awareness, it can lead to other benefits. One is, if we become, often with all the changes that happen in the world today, and all the difficulties we've been through, whether it's pandemic, whether it's natural disasters, global warming, I don't need to list them. We often undergo, people don't really know how to deal with the stress very well. So that's why mental health, there's a lot of problems. A lot of people have mental health problems. Even if it's not a big problem, a lot of people are stressed. So if we get this wisdom, use the tools, like in the ancient rishis, for example, in the Yoga Sutras, give so many tools to learn to know our mind and work on ourselves. So if we do that, and through techniques as like adapting that to the modern world into techniques of mindfulness, self-awareness, that brings down our stress levels. And in a way, when we're stressed, that kind of uses up all our energy. So that energy we have is not available to be to someone else, to listen to someone else, to key into someone else's experience, their suffering. So through becoming more, increasing our well-being within ourselves, it makes us also more available to others, as another point. And just to come back on last little point I'd like to make about how, I mentioned it, but I didn't go into depth, how mindfulness and self-awareness leads to self-compassion, also self-compassion. That is a point actually also. I think when we understand the way our mind works, when we start watching our mind, we actually really see how our mind functions. And we get that kind of what we call self-compassion, or self-compassion towards ourselves, but also compassion towards others who also basically are stuck with the same kind of mind, which, as the scriptures say, can be our friend, and our own mind can also be our enemy. So when we become aware of that, we also become much more understanding of others as well. That's just a side point. I just wanted to mention a research that was done where basically there were two groups. One group was trained in mindfulness, and they were it was an online training. So for 3 weeks, they underwent just a short, I think it was 10 minutes a day of mindfulness training online. Then there was the other group, which had also an online training, but it was in cognitive training, which didn't have any mindfulness element in it. So after those 3 weeks, I can't remember if it was 2 weeks or 3 weeks, basically the research participants were asked to come to the office to just complete their little training they had. And so then the stage was set at this office. When each participant came, what they saw was they had to sit in the waiting room of the office, where there were 3 chairs. And 2 of the chairs were full. Someone was sitting in them, so there was only 1 chair available. So the research participant would come and naturally sit on the remaining chair. And then this was staged, but someone would come in with crutches and wearing, those boots, like someone who's broken their leg. And she'd come in, obviously, clearly wincing as she walked. And then she'd arrive, and of course there's no free chairs. So she would just kind of lean against the wall, obviously feeling tired. So, as you can guess, the experiment was to see whether the research participant would have the kindness to get up and offer their seat. Now, what was interesting is, there was very clear result was that those who had undergone the mindfulness training were twice as likely to get up and give their seat than those who only went through the cognitive training. So I think this is a really good example of how, what might not seem obvious to start with, but how self-introspection, which is the richness, what our rishis teach us at the end of the day, that's the biggest lesson, does lead to not only more empathetic individuals, but more compassionate, that actually translates into their action.
I would like to slightly elaborate on the scriptural dictum Satyam Vada Dharmajara Swadhyaya Ma Pramadaha. Speak the truth. It doesn't mean never lie. The implied meaning is you find out the facts about a certain situation and then lay them out. That's what it means. And dharmam chara, follow your dharma. Don't be just a lip service man. Be a doer also. Be action oriented. Walk the talk. And now swadhyayan ma pramadaha, a profession. Whatever it may be is all about best practices. Udaharan. C20, we have such udaharans. We have adopted that. It means be up to date. Be fully aware of the latest development in the area of your action. While performing your duty, for example, a doctor's advice to his or her patient shouldn't be on the basis of what information or what he has studied while he was or she was a medical student. But it should be in the light of the current knowledge. So that is what it means. And my last question, the last question of this session to Dr. Manisha Sudhir is knowing that the right atmosphere for the growth of dharma or spiritual values should start even while the baby is in its mother's womb, and that the parents and the home play an important role as well. What changes would you suggest?
Sure. Thank you, Samji. I think you have put me on spot this question because
She's a mother.
yeah.
She is a mother of...
So I have to say everything
Yes.
which I am not doing.
And you got direct guidance from Amma, so I think you can answer this question perfectly well. So please.
So I think one thing which I always feel like this, in our life as we go through, we always say that someone will educate us, someone will teach us to move forward of what is the next step I have to do, what is the right action I have to do. I think parenting is one area where there is no training. And that normally happens is as natural. If I have been trained by seeing what my parents are doing and what their actions, that is what I'm actually trying to give to my children also. But naturally, context change over time, technology changing, the way you live, what type of house you live, everything changed. So you have to have the contextual changes coming in. But over years, I think more emphasis has been to imitate the Western world. So this imitation has made us to think, rather than thinking about the well-wishing of the community around us, we started becoming more and more competitive. That's where Swamiji was telling that we are training all the children to become more competitive and telling them not to help someone else and then try to achieve something. So I think it is actually coming more or less because you don't get the basic fundamental moral values from the home, and at the same time you are trying to imitate somebody else rather than looking inside of you and rather than trying to connect yourself and bring out the positive impacts. And most of the time nowadays what we are doing is we point fingers on others. That's almost like a game for us, and we like that the most. And we forget to point that finger towards us. If we can just turn that towards us and look at what we are doing, whether it is right or wrong, and then do a corrective action. And if you can train your children also in that aspect, the mere simple thing to look at every action, what is its impact? Did I do right or wrong? If that cycle can be brought in, that self-introspection can be brought in, I think slowly we can bring in some changes.
Thank you, Dr. Manisha. Vidya Vinaya Sambanne Brahmano Givi Hastini Shuni Chaiva Sopakecha Panditaha Samadarshinaha. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 5, verse 18. A truly learned and wise person sees a scholar, a cow, elephant, a dog, and a dog eater equally. Now, don't take the meaning of this Sanskrit verse literally. See, the Sanskrit has the speciality. People always see only the surface. They don't go deep into the words. So we need to go beneath the surface of the words to understand the real meaning of Krishna's words. What Krishna says, the wise person sees everyone with equal vision, but that doesn't mean that he or she treats them in the same manner. Little confusing, right? The way he or she deals with a dog will not be the same way he treats a human being, or his own wife, his own children, his relatives. You may wonder if this is possible at all. Yes, I will give you an example. Our body has different parts, right? We have legs, we have hands, we have eyes, ears, nose. Do we treat all of the organs equally? The way we treat our eyes is different from the way we treat our legs. The way we treat our hands are different from the way we treat our legs. So, we treat them differently, but it is one. The entire body is a single unit. However, we are fully aware of the different various body parts. So perhaps developing at least 1% of this vision, swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahado bhayad, Krishna tells Arjuna, I am not asking to be 100% dharmic person. You cannot, and you need not. Swalpam, a little bit. So at least little bit. Perhaps this small bit of change will take care of everything. At least 5% of the world's population, forget about it, 2%, 1% can change. So this attitude also can fulfill Vasudhaiva Kudumbagam, the G20 tagline. Also, you are the light, the C20 tagline, the theme. This is what it stands for. A little bit of change in our attitude. So may we be able to cultivate at least a little bit of that vision, and may our governments have the willingness to incorporate this lofty ideal into our educational system, which would take care of all the problems. At least 40 to 50%. That's enough, more than enough. So thank you, Ritesh, for your practical solutions, and thank you, Dr. Alexander Jacob, for your insightful words. Dr. Manisha, your practical examples, and also Brahmacharini Amrita Chaitanya for your wonderful stories and practical examples. Thank you for your participation.
Pranam Swamiji, and many thanks to all of our guests. Before we conclude the session, I wanted to make sure that we do honor our guests on stage. So I would like to request Dr. Shyam Devakar to please come and honor Ritesh Singh ji, IAS. And I would like to request Brahmachari Ramananda Chaitanya ji to please come and felicitate Dr. Jacob. And the memento is a wonderful painting representing the eternal knowledge of the scriptures. So, pranams to everybody, and many thanks for joining us on stage today.